A drowning dog was on the brink of giving up until a stranger dove in. What happened next will restore your faith in humanity. The storm rages on, turning the sky into a dark, angry mass of clouds. The wind howls fiercely, making the ocean waves crash violently against the shore. In the middle of this madness, a small dog is fighting for its life. The water is freezing and powerful, pulling the dog deeper into the sea with every wave. Its tiny body is tossed around like a rag doll, fighting to stay above the surface. The dog's fur is drenched, weighing it down as it struggles against the cold, unforgiving water. With each powerful wave, the dog's body is pulled farther from land. It's exhausted, but it keeps paddling its legs, desperate to survive. Every time the dog manages to get a breath, another wave comes crashing down, pushing the dog back under the water. It feels as if the ocean is against it, a force much stronger than the dog can handle. The dog's heart races, its eyes wide with panic as it desperately tries to stay afloat. Its strength is fading, its body growing heavier by the second. The dog's once quick movements are now slow and sluggish, as if the storm is draining every ounce of energy it has left. The cold water is numbing, and it's getting harder to breathe. The dog's small, fragile body is struggling to keep up with the powerful waves that keep pulling it down. Each breath is harder to take, and the dog can feel its body weakening. The dog begins to wonder if anyone will come to its rescue. Is anyone out there? It's alone in the vast ocean, and no one is around to help. The fear sets in deeper, and the dog starts to give up. It's exhausted, both physically and mentally. The waves are unrelenting, and the dog is running out of strength. It begins to feel like there is no escape, that the storm will be the end of its fight for survival. As the dog struggles against the waves, fear begins to overwhelm it. Each new wave feels like it could be the one that takes it under for good. The dog's legs are no longer able to move as quickly, its muscles aching with the effort. It can feel the water seeping into its lungs, making it harder to breathe. The cold is freezing its body, and the exhaustion is making its movements slower and weaker. The dog's heart is pounding in its chest. It knows that every second counts, but it feels so far from safety. The shore seems like it's miles away, and the dog's strength is almost gone. With each wave that hits, the dog is pushed further away from the land, further from any hope of survival. The dog's eyes dart around, but all it sees is the endless expanse of water and the violent storm. The dog begins to lose hope. Is this how it's going to end? Alone in the storm, without anyone to help. The thought of giving up crosses the dog's mind, but it pushes it away, not ready to surrender just yet. For a brief moment, the dog's body goes limp, its movements growing weaker with every passing second. The storm's fury seems to have swallowed the dog's last bit of energy. The dog's eyes close for just a moment, drifting into a haze of exhaustion. Feels as if the end is near. But then, in the distance, the dog sees something. A figure. A person, standing at the edge of the shore. It's hard to tell if the dog is imagining it, the storm and waves making it hard to focus. But the dog holds on to that tiny spark of hope. Could it be? Is someone actually there? Could this stranger be the one to save it from the storm? The dog's body feels weaker, but it somehow gathers the strength to fight the waves one more time. Its heart beats faster, and the thought of help coming makes the dog push through the storm, despite how tired it is. It's not ready to give up yet. The tension rises as the dog struggles to reach the shore, hoping the figure in the distance is real, hoping help will come in time. Will the stranger make it to the dog before it's too late? As the dog continues to fight against the storm, desperately struggling to stay afloat, the figure on the shore grows clearer. It's a person, a stranger, standing at the edge of the water. Their silhouette is barely visible against the dark storm, but they seem to be watching the dog's desperate fight. The stranger's heart races as they watch the small dog struggling with every wave, clearly fighting for its life. For a moment, the stranger hesitates. The storm is fierce and unforgiving, and the waves are crashing violently. The person can barely see through the rain, and the wind is so strong that it feels impossible to even hear anything over the roaring of the ocean. They glance at the raging sea and then at the dog, who looks barely conscious, drifting in and out of the water's grasp. The stranger's breath catches in their throat. Is it worth it? Can I even make it in time? They take a step forward, but the ground beneath them shifts, making them pause. The storm's intensity makes everything feel like a battle in itself. The thought of diving into the cold, churning water, risking their own life for a dog they've never met, fills them with doubt. What if they can't make it? What if they drown too? The waves are enormous, and the storm shows no signs of slowing down. The stranger knows it would be easy to turn back, to stay safe on the shore. But the image of the dog's struggling body and its hopeless, desperate eyes refuses to leave their mind. The hesitation feels unbearable, like a heavy weight on their chest. The stranger looks at the ocean, still torn between the safety of the shore and the need to help the helpless animal. They feel a deep sense of responsibility tugging at them, but also a sharp fear, a fear that threatens to paralyze them right where they stand. Inside, the stranger's mind is a storm of its own. The waves of doubt crash against the feeling of duty, each one pulling them in a different direction. What if I can't do it? They think. What if I'm too late? The thought of failing, of watching the dog be lost to the sea without being able to help, is unbearable. The stranger's heart aches, knowing the risk they face in jumping into the ocean. It's not just the storm that makes the decision so difficult. It's the fear of losing everything. The stranger has lived through struggles of their own, and they know what it's like to feel alone and helpless. Is this their chance to do something good? Or will it be a mistake they'll never recover from? For a few moments, time seems to stand still. The storm rages on, and the stranger stands frozen on the shore, watching the dog fight against the waves. The dog's struggle is growing weaker, and with each passing moment, the stranger can see the dog getting closer to its breaking point. The dog's tiny body is fading, its head slipping beneath the surface as the sea continues to pull it under. The stranger is overwhelmed by the question that keeps playing in their mind. If I don't act now, will I regret it forever? Can I live with myself knowing I had a chance to save a life and didn't take it? The storm howls louder, and the sea keeps pulling the dog further out, and yet, the stranger is still standing there. But then, the stranger looks back at the dog's face. Its eyes, wide and full of fear, are staring out of the water, silently pleading for help. That look, so full of desperation and hope, hits the stranger with a wave of emotion. It's no longer a question of whether they're brave enough. It's a question of what kind of person they want to be. Do they want to be someone who turns away in fear, or do they want to be someone who acts no matter the risk? A sudden clarity washes over the stranger, and in that moment, the decision is made. There is no more hesitation. The stranger is diving in, knowing the consequences, but more determined than ever to save the dog. It's now or never. The storm roars, but everything else fades into the background. The stranger's heart pounds in their chest, and their breath comes in quick gasps. There is no time to waste. The dog's body is growing weaker with every wave, slipping further from safety. The stranger feels the weight of the moment. This is the point of no return. The doubt that once held them back disappears, replaced by a surge of determination. Without another thought, the stranger steps forward, determined to act. They take a deep breath, steeling themselves against the fear that still lurks in the back of their mind. This is it. They can't turn back now. The dog's life is in their hands, and there's no more hesitation. The stranger dives into the water, the cold instantly shocking their body as they plunge into the churning waves. The force of the water is overwhelming. The current pulls them under for a moment, but the stranger pushes through, breaking the surface and taking a deep breath before plunging back into the dark water. The world around them is nothing but wind, rain, and the sound of the waves crashing relentlessly. There is no going back now. The stranger's heart races, but there is no turning away. With every stroke, they draw closer to the dog, whose struggles are now more desperate than ever. The stranger feels the weight of the dog's life resting on their shoulders. I have to make it, they think. I can't let the dog die. The dog's helpless form is barely visible against the waves, but the stranger can still see its eyes, wide and filled with fear. The look in the dog's eyes is what drives the stranger forward. The closer the stranger gets to the dog, the stronger the waves seem to grow. The ocean doesn't care about the stranger's desperation. It pulls with a power that feels almost cruel. Each wave is a force of nature, a reminder that the stranger is fighting against something much bigger than themselves. The stakes are rising with every passing second. Can they make it? The waves keep crashing down, pushing the stranger back as soon as they make any progress. The storm howls louder, as if mocking their every attempt to move forward. The dog is fading fast. With each passing wave, its body sinks lower into the water, its movements weaker and more sluggish. The stranger can see that the dog is barely clinging to life. The thought of losing the dog pushes the stranger harder. Their arms ache, their legs are heavy from the struggle, and the water makes every movement more difficult. But there is no time to think of their own exhaustion. The dog needs me. With the next wave, the stranger reaches out, their hand grabbing the dog's fur, pulling the small animal close. But the storm isn't finished yet. The dog's body slips from the stranger's grasp as another wave crashes over them. The dog's helpless form is lost for a moment, swallowed by the ocean's relentless power. The stranger's heart skips a beat. Did I lose it? Did I fail? But they refuse to give up. They dive deeper into the water, searching with frantic urgency. The water is cold, and the waves are pulling at them from every direction. But the stranger's eyes are fixed on the dog. The dog is still out there. The stranger's determination is stronger than ever. The storm seems to intensify, the wind howling and the rain falling harder. The water feels like an endless maze, but the stranger keeps fighting through it, moving with all the strength they can muster. Every second feels like an eternity. Will they make it in time? Can they save the dog? And then, just when it seems like the stranger can't push any further, they see the dog again. Barely conscious, the dog is still alive, its eyes open but glazed with exhaustion. The stranger reaches out once more, grabbing the dog's body with a firm grip, pulling it close despite the crushing weight of the water. With every ounce of energy left, the stranger kicks towards the shore. The storm is relentless. The waves continue to crash, but the stranger is holding on to hope. This is it. This is the moment. The closer they get to the shore, the more desperate the struggle becomes. The waves feel like they're pushing the stranger back, but they push forward, determined to bring the dog to safety. The tension is unbearable, the storm's fury showing no sign of slowing. The storm continues its relentless assault, but with every stroke of their arms, the stranger pulls the dog closer to safety. The waves seem determined to push them back, but the stranger refuses to surrender. Their body is exhausted from the struggle, their muscles screaming in pain, but they don't stop. Not now. Not when they're so close. The water seems endless, cold, and unyielding, but the stranger's heart beats louder with each second that passes. The shore is close. They can see it in the distance, just a blur through the heavy rain and waves. But it feels like miles away, with every new wave threatening to undo all the progress they've made. The dog, now limp and barely breathing, lies in the stranger's arms, its tiny body heavy in the water. The stranger's grip tightens. The fear that had once paralyzed them is now replaced with an all-consuming drive to get the dog to safety. They can't give up. They can't let the dog die in their arms after they've come this far. The stranger's mind is sharp, every instinct focused on bringing the dog to solid ground, out of the storm's grasp. But just as they feel like they're losing ground, the stranger pushes harder, their legs kicking against the water's resistance. The dog's fur is slick and heavy, the animal's weight dragging them both down, but the stranger's resolve only strengthens. With a final, desperate burst of energy, they make one last push, fighting the current with all their might. They hear a shout, a distant voice, but they can barely register it over the roaring storm. The stranger's only focus is the shore, the dog, and the promise of safety. Finally, with one last surge of strength, the stranger feels the sand beneath their feet. The waves are still crashing, but the shore is now within reach. They struggle to keep their balance, the water still pushing against them as they make their way through the surf. Their legs feel like lead, but they manage to get both themselves and the dog closer to the shore, step by painful step. When they finally reach the beach, they collapse onto the sand, clutching the dog to their chest. The rain is still pouring down, but the worst of the storm has passed. The stranger, breathing heavily, looks down at the dog, who is barely conscious but alive. The relief that floods the stranger's chest is overwhelming. They did it. The dog is safe, at least for now. The stranger lies on the wet sand, holding the dog close, their heart racing as they try to catch their breath. The storm, while still raging, seems less threatening now. The wind has died down, and the waves are no longer as fierce as before. The struggle is over, for now. The stranger's heart is still pounding in their chest, but there's an overwhelming sense of relief that washes over them. They look at the dog, still weak, but breathing. The dog's little chest rises and falls, shallow at first, but steady. The stranger's hands are trembling as they stroke the dog's fur, still wet from the ocean, but alive. They saved the dog. A deep sense of pride swells within the stranger's chest, but it's mixed with a deep gratitude. The storm had been terrifying, and there were moments when the stranger wasn't sure they could make it. The waves had seemed endless, the fear of failure so strong that it threatened to break them. But in that moment, lying on the wet sand with the dog in their arms, that fear was gone. The stranger's decision had been the right one. They had acted when others might have hesitated, and now they were rewarded with the joy of knowing that the dog would survive. As the rain begins to let up and the wind dies down, the stranger can finally allow themselves to relax. They watch the dog, whose breathing has steadied, and they smile. The dog made it. It's a moment of pure relief, of victory in the face of the storm's fury. The stranger, exhausted but grateful, looks around at the quieting world. The storm is still present, but it no longer holds the same power over them. They've overcome it, and so has the dog. But even in that moment of peace, the stranger's heart swells with a new feeling, hope. The dog may be weak, but it's alive. The stranger's determination had brought them through the worst of it, and now they can see the future more clearly. There's a sense of quiet optimism in the air, the promise of recovery, of new beginnings. The stranger cradles the dog carefully, whispering words of comfort, and a thought crosses their mind. The storm may have tried to take it all away, but it couldn't break us. The journey isn't over, but the worst is behind them. Together they've fought through the storm, and now together they'll heal. The days following the rescue are filled with small, quiet victories. The stranger, now a guardian, watches over the dog with a mix of tenderness and cautious optimism. The dog, though exhausted and weak from the traumatic ordeal, has survived. But the journey isn't over. This is just the beginning of the healing process. At first, the dog remains quiet, its body still too frail to move much. Its eyes, though tired, are alert, always following the stranger's movements. The stranger makes sure to keep a steady presence, offering gentle reassurance as they clean and dry the dog's fur, preparing food, and providing fresh water. The dog doesn't show much interest at first, its strength having been drained by the storm. But there's something in the dog's eyes, something that speaks of a quiet will to recover. Each passing day brings slight improvements. The dog's appetite, once almost non-existent, begins to return. It starts eating small meals, its body slowly regaining some of the strength it lost during the fight for survival. The dog's movements become more fluid, and it begins to show signs of curiosity, sniffing around the new environment, exploring its temporary home with slow but cautious steps. The dog is still wary, its body tense, but there's a noticeable difference. The dog is beginning to believe that safety is not just an illusion. It's something real, something it can now experience. Despite the challenges, the stranger remains patient. They've seen the dog's courage in the face of danger, and now they're determined to help it heal, physically and emotionally. The dog's recovery is not just about physical strength. It's about trust. And with each new day, the dog's trust grows bit by bit, even if it's just a small, hesitant glance toward the stranger. Trust doesn't come quickly, and it's not always easy. The dog is not yet ready to fully open up. Its body may be recovering, but the scars left by the storm, and perhaps by past experiences, are deeper. The dog doesn't yet understand that it's safe. It still flinches when the stranger moves too quickly, and it still keeps a certain distance, watching from a safe corner. But the stranger knows better than to rush the process. Healing takes time, and so does trust. Every gentle touch, every kind word, every calm moment spent together is a step forward. The stranger sits quietly near the dog, never pushing for affection, but always there, offering companionship and reassurance. They know that the dog needs time to process what happened and to learn that not all humans are a threat. The stranger speaks softly, offering encouragement, but never forcing the dog to respond before it's ready. Gradually, the dog begins to make small strides toward trust. Comes closer, just a little at first, then a little more. One morning, the stranger wakes up to find the dog lying near them, its head resting on its paws, watching. The dog's posture is still cautious, but there's a calmness there that wasn't there before. This quiet gesture speaks volumes. It's the beginning of a bond, a shift from fear to curiosity. One afternoon, as the stranger sits nearby, the dog approaches, taking tentative steps. The stranger doesn't move, allowing the dog to come closer on its own terms. The dog sniffs the stranger's outstretched hand, hesitant at first, but then it licks their fingers. It's a small gesture, but it's a breakthrough. It's the first real sign that the dog is beginning to trust again. The stranger smiles, not with pride, but with a quiet relief. This is what they've been waiting for, the moment when the dog realizes it's safe, and that the stranger won't harm it. As the days pass, the trust deepens. The dog begins to nuzzle up to the stranger, curling up beside them on the couch or on the floor. It no longer flinches at every sudden movement or loud sound. The dog, though still cautious, has begun to settle into its new life. The stranger watches in awe as the dog transforms from a frightened, weary survivor into a being capable of finding comfort again. It's in these small moments, the quiet acceptance, the gentle touches, the quiet companionship, that the true beauty of their bond begins to take shape. What started as a desperate fight for survival in a violent storm has turned into a second chance for both of them. For the stranger, this isn't just about saving a dog. It's about giving that dog a chance to live, to trust again, and to find peace after a traumatic ordeal. And for the dog, it's a journey from fear to healing, from loss to the potential for love. The bond between the stranger and the dog grows stronger each day, though it's not without its challenges. The scars, both physical and emotional, are still there, but they don't define their future. What matters now is the life they are building together, one of healing, trust, and love. In time, the dog begins to show its true personality. Plays in the yard, its tail wagging with excitement. It runs toward the stranger when they call, its once weak body now full of energy. It no longer views the stranger with uncertainty, but with genuine affection. The stranger has become more than just a rescuer. They've become a companion, a protector, and a friend. And for the dog, this is everything. As time passes, the relationship between the stranger and the dog transforms into something much deeper than just a rescuer and a rescued. What began as a life-or-death struggle in the storm has blossomed into a profound connection, built on mutual understanding, patience, and healing. Every day spent together strengthens their bond. The dog, once so hesitant and withdrawn, now approaches the stranger with increasing trust. It no longer stays in the corners of the room, watching from a distance. Instead, it's at the stranger's side, following them from room to room, its once cautious steps now full of confidence. The dog has started to seek out affection, leaning into the stranger's touch with a calmness that shows just how much it has come to rely on their presence. The stranger, in turn, has grown deeply attached to the dog. They've watched it recover, both physically and emotionally, and with each new milestone, the wag of the tail, the excited bark when they return home, the way the dog now rests its head on their lap, they're reminded of the quiet power of unconditional love. The dog has become a constant companion, not just in the house but in the stranger's heart. There are moments, small and simple, that speak volumes. When the stranger sits on the porch, the dog curls up at their feet, content and peaceful. In the mornings, the dog greets them with a wagging tail, excited to start the day together. These everyday moments are proof that something beautiful is growing between them, something beyond the rescue, beyond the struggle. It's a connection forged in shared experiences and quiet moments of trust. The stranger often reflects on the journey they've been through together, the storm, the rescue, the recovery, and feels a deep sense of fulfillment. They're no longer just helping the dog heal. They're growing together, learning from each other. The bond is no longer one-sided. It's a true partnership. With each passing day, the stranger finds themselves more and more fulfilled by the growing connection with the dog. What started as a moment of uncertainty and fear has turned into a relationship of deep emotional significance. The stranger now feels a sense of peace, a quiet joy that fills the spaces where fear and doubt once lived. The dog has gone from being a survivor of a storm to becoming a beacon of hope and resilience. And the stranger, who once hesitated before diving into the water to save a life, now understands what it means to give love freely, without hesitation. They've learned that love doesn't just mean rescuing someone. It means showing up every day, even when it's hard, even when it takes time. Love means being there for each other no matter the past. The dog, in turn, has found a sense of safety and comfort it may have never known before. It no longer sees the world through the lens of fear and trauma. Instead, it's learning to trust again, not just in the stranger, but in life itself. The emotional scars left by the storm are slowly fading, replaced by the warmth of companionship and affection. One evening, as the sun sets and the two sit quietly together, the stranger feels a deep sense of emotional fulfillment. This wasn't just about saving a dog from a storm. It was about saving each other. The stranger has found in the dog not just a companion, but a source of strength, a reminder that even after the darkest storms, there's always a chance for new beginnings. And the dog has found a safe haven, a place where it's loved and cared for, a place where it can heal and grow. In those quiet moments of peace, as the dog rests its head on the stranger's lap, a feeling of profound gratitude settles over both of them. There's no need for words, just the comfort of each other's presence. The bond between them is a testament to the power of second chances, the healing nature of love, and the quiet strength that can emerge from the most difficult of circumstances. As the bond between the stranger and the dog grows stronger, there's an unspoken promise that forms between them. The stranger has proven that they will never abandon the dog, no matter the struggles or the challenges ahead. And the dog, in its quiet, trusting way, has promised to stay by the stranger's side through the highs and lows of life. Their bond has become a commitment, a shared promise that they will walk through life together, facing whatever comes their way. The dog is no longer just a survivor. It's a partner, a friend, and a family member. The stranger's life is forever changed, filled with new purpose and a deeper sense of love. The emotional fulfillment that comes from this bond is unmatched. It's a reminder that love doesn't always come in expected ways, and sometimes, the greatest connections are the ones that are forged through hardship, resilience, and an open heart. Together, they've created something beautiful, a relationship rooted in trust, love, and the knowledge that they will always be there for each other. And as they continue their journey together, it's clear that this bond will last for a lifetime. After months of healing, growth, and shared experiences, the stranger and the dog have come full circle. What began as a desperate rescue from the fury of a storm has transformed into a peaceful, stable life for both of them. The once frightened dog is now a confident and happy companion, living in a world where love and trust are no longer foreign concepts. The bond they share has brought a sense of calm to both of their lives. The dog, once struggling to survive in the face of overwhelming odds, now enjoys the warmth of a safe and loving home. The stranger, who took the brave step of diving into the storm to save a life, now finds peace in knowing they've done more than just save the dog. They've given it a new chance at life. It's not just about survival anymore. It's about thriving. Each day feels like a fresh start. The dog runs freely in the yard, tail wagging joyfully, without the shadow of fear that once clouded its every movement. The stranger watches with a smile, their hearts swelling with pride as they see the dog take its first steps into a brighter future. The bond between them has created a space where they both feel safe, valued, and loved. In these quiet moments, life feels simple but complete. The dog curls up next to the stranger on the couch, its once guarded nature replaced by a sense of contentment. Together, they enjoy the beauty of a peaceful existence, no longer weighed down by the trauma of the past, but filled with hope for the future. This is their new beginning, one that was born from struggle but is now marked by tranquility and trust. The stranger looks at the dog, their heart full of gratitude. They think back to the storm, to the uncertainty, to the fear. And now, looking at the dog resting peacefully by their side, they realize just how far they've both come. The healing journey has been long and hard, but it has led to this peace, love, and the promise of a future together. As time continues to pass, the stranger and the dog enter a new chapter of their lives, one where the past no longer holds them captive. The dog is fully recovered now, not just in body, but in spirit. There are no more signs of fear or hesitation. The dog now stands as a symbol of resilience, of overcoming the worst that life had to offer and finding a path back to joy. The stranger has found a sense of closure, knowing that their decision to rescue the dog was the right one. Every day, as they see the dog wag its tail in excitement, play in the yard, and curl up beside them for affection, the stranger feels a deep sense of fulfillment. They have given the dog a chance at life, but more than that, they've given themselves a chance at healing as well. The love between them has created a bond that fills the empty spaces in both of their hearts. There are still moments of reflection, when the stranger looks back at the stormy night when they made the choice to dive in, not knowing what the outcome would be. But now, with the dog by their side, that night feels like a distant memory, overshadowed by the life they've built together. The pain and fear from that moment have been replaced with gratitude and joy. The dog, too, has found closure. It no longer looks at the world through the lens of trauma. It's no longer the animal that was once fighting against the storm. Instead, it's a dog that has come to understand what it means to be loved, to be safe, and to be cared for. It has found its place in the world, right beside the stranger who has become its family. Together, they have created a story of hope, a story where despair has given way to healing, and where both the stranger and the dog have found peace in each other's presence. The bond they share is unbreakable, a reminder that even after the harshest storms, there is always the possibility of a new beginning. As the dog lays its head on the stranger's lap, there's a sense of quiet fulfillment, a sense that they've reached the end of one journey and the beginning of another. The storm is long gone, and in its place is a future built on love, trust, and a bond that will last a lifetime. This is the full circle of hope, a journey that began in fear but ended in peace. If this heartwarming story of courage, compassion, and second chances moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. Every view and share helps us spread more stories that inspire hope and remind us of the incredible power of kindness. Have you ever witnessed a moment of unexpected heroism or kindness? We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Drop a comment below and share your story with us. Together, we can create a community that celebrates the beauty of compassion. Sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us of our ability to make a difference in the lives of others. Whether it's a dog, a stranger, or anyone in need, small acts of kindness can change everything. Let's keep that spark of hope alive, one story at a time. If this tale of love and bravery touched you, consider subscribing to our channel for more uplifting stories. Turn on the notifications so you never miss a moment that could change your perspective on life. Together, let's spread the message that no matter how dark the storm, there is always a chance for a brighter tomorrow.